My name is Rosalie Bennett. I'm 36 years old, and the moment my relationship ended didn't sound like heartbreak. It sounded like something colder, something controlled, like a sentence that had been practiced in advance. If you leave me, I'll ruin everything you built. Brandon didn't raise his voice when he said it. That was the part that stayed with me. Not the words themselves, but how easily they came out. Like he wasn't threatening me, like he was stating a plan. I remember standing there in my kitchen, staring at him, feeling something inside me go completely still. Because anger, I understood. But that was something else. I live just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I run a small residential electrical company. Nothing flashy. 4 vans, 5 employees, including me, a rented warehouse space, and enough consistent work to keep us booked out most weeks. I built it from the ground up. Long days, early mornings, jobs nobody wanted until people started trusting my name. I'm not rich, but I built something real. Brandon Cole is 31. He worked in social media when we met. Branding, content, the kind of work that revolves around perception. By the time things started falling apart, he was freelancing from home, calling himself a brand consultant. We were together a little over 3 years. He lived in my house for the last 9 months of it. In the beginning, he was magnetic, sharp, confident, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make it feel like something was happening. I'm not like that. I work in boots. I eat fast. Most nights I fall asleep halfway through whatever show is playing. Brandon had energy, taste, opinions about everything. At first, it felt like he expanded my life. Then I realized he didn't want to expand it. He wanted to direct it. It started small. Comments that sounded helpful if you didn't listen too closely. Why are you still driving that old truck to meetings? That warehouse space makes you look small time. You need better branding, better clients, better habits. Everything about my life, according to Brandon, was almost good enough. Almost. Then he started inserting himself into the business. At first, it sounded reasonable. He said he could help with my company Instagram, clean up the website, answer messages, and I let him because I was busy, because he sounded like he knew what he was doing. Within 2 months, my invoices had fonts I hated. My business page was posting captions about legacy and hustle that didn't sound like me. And Brandon started referring to it as our business. The first time he did that in front of people who had known me for years, I corrected him. I kept it light. It's my business. He just helped with some branding. He smiled. That calm, controlled smile that meant I'd pay for it later. Right, he said. That's what I meant. He didn't mean that. By the end of the 2nd year, every argument circled back to what he thought he deserved from the life I had built. A bigger ring, a better house, a bigger role in decisions, and eventually, access to the money. That was the one that came up the most. I kept my business finances separate. Always had. My accountant would have killed me otherwise. Brandon didn't like that. He said it made him feel temporary. I said we weren't married. And my payroll account wasn't a relationship trust fall. He called me cold. I called it responsible. Things shifted after that. He started working less, spending more. Packages showed up 3 times a week. Brunches in places where the napkins probably cost more than the food. Appointments, treatments, clothes, and long explanations about how image mattered when you were building a future. The future, according to Brandon, always looked expensive. The fight that ended us wasn't even about something big. It was about a truck. Not my work truck, a new one he thought I should lease. Because one of my competitors had posted a video standing next to a brand new black Ford with his logo across the doors. Brandon showed me the video over dinner, like he was presenting evidence. This is what growth looks like, he said. I looked at it. Then I said, this is what debt looks like. He laughed. Not because it was funny, because he thought I didn't get it. You're always going to stay small if you think like that. That stayed with me, because it wasn't true. I wasn't staying small. I was being careful. There's a difference. I had paid off equipment, repeat clients. 6 weeks of payroll covered, even if everything stopped tomorrow. That's not small. That's stable. But people who never built anything themselves, they confuse patience with fear. I let it go that night. 10 days later, everything ended. Thursday. I got home around 8:15. Long day, hot attic job. The kind where your back reminds you later what you did to it. I walked in expecting quiet. Instead, Brandon was sitting at the kitchen island. Full makeup. Glass of wine, that steady voice people use when they've rehearsed something. I set my keys down, and I knew. He said, we need to talk about where this is going. I didn't pretend. Okay. He took a breath, then delivered it. Said he couldn't keep investing in someone who thought small. Said I was holding both of us back. Said he was tired of waiting for me to step into the life he knew we could have. if I'd just listen. And then, if you leave me, I'll ruin everything you built. Silence. I stared at him. Because sometimes the worst things aren't loud, they're clean. I asked, "Did you really just say that?" He didn't back off, just lifted one shoulder. Maybe that's what you need to take me seriously. Something in me went quiet, completely quiet. I said, "Try it." He blinked. That threw him. Then he stood up. "Excuse me. If that's what you think love sounds like, we're done, so try it." He started talking faster after that. Not softer. Faster. "You don't mean that. You're just angry. You always shut down like this." I didn't answer. I went upstairs, grabbed 2 duffel bags, and started packing his things. That was the moment he realized. The conversation had ended without him. By 11:03 p.m., Brandon's car was gone. I heard the tires before I saw the headlights disappear past the end of the driveway. Fast, sharp, the kind of exit meant to be noticed. He had stood at the bottom of the stairs before leaving, one hand on the railing, looking up at me like I'd just made a mistake I couldn't undo. "You're going to regret this, Rosalie." I didn't answer, because I already knew something he didn't. Regret only works if you still want the person standing in front of you. By midnight, everything that belonged to him was by the front door. Clothes folded, shoes paired, toiletries packed, his laptop, ring light, product samples, the overpriced marble desk organizer he insisted made the guest room feel executive. I packed like I was clearing out a tenant, not a partner. Careful, quiet, efficient. The larger items went into the garage. Then I booked a storage unit, climate controlled, month to month, $118 plus a lock. I took screenshots, printed the receipt, wrote the access code on an envelope, and I left it on top of his bags. "You said you'd ruin what I built. That ends here. Your things are packed. The rest is in Unit 46 through the end of the month. Do not contact my employees, clients, or vendors. Rosalie." Then I changed the garage code, changed the front door keypad, and for the first time in months, I slept. Not perfectly, but deeply. At 1:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You have no idea what you just started." I blocked it and turned the phone face down. Morning came faster than I expected. 3 missed calls from unknown numbers before 7:30. Then a text from one of Brandon's friends. "Brandon is devastated. You need to stop acting crazy and call him." I stared at it for a second, then replied once. "He threatened to ruin my business. There is nothing to discuss." No response after that. At 9:12 a.m., Denise called. She didn't sound panicked. Denise never sounded panicked, but she sounded careful. "Hey," she said, "Brandon just called the warehouse asking for vendor passwords." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so predictable it almost felt scripted. "Don't give him anything," I said. "Don't answer questions. Forward me everything." "Already doing that," she said. Denise had been with me since year 2. She knew the difference between relationship drama and something that could affect payroll. 2 hours later, she called again. This time, there was no pause. "He emailed the supplier pretending to be you." That made my stomach drop. Not hard, just enough. "He used a Gmail with your name, said to pause upcoming orders, claimed internal restructuring." Did they believe it? No, they called to confirm. Same with a commercial client he emailed. They both thought it looked off. I exhaled slowly. Forward everything. I already did. Of course she had. That was day 1. Day 2, he showed up. I didn't see him in person, but the cameras did. He stood outside the warehouse bay doors in a white blazer and sunglasses, like he was there to be seen, not to talk. He asked one of my apprentices, Jalen, if I was inside, and whether we still had tax paperwork in the office. "Jalen told me later," said Brandon, smiled the whole time. Like it was casual. Like it was normal. Jalen just said, "You'll need to talk to Rosalie," and walked back inside. That afternoon, I changed everything. Passwords, logins, email hosting, website backend, invoices, supplier portals, social media, anything Brandon had ever touched or even been near. I didn't rush it. I went system by system, methodical, because panic makes mistakes. And mistakes were exactly what he was waiting for. That night, another message came through. Different number. "You're really doing all this instead of apologizing?" I didn't answer, because there was nothing left to say. Friday morning, the first real hit landed. Eric called. He manages 3 properties I service regularly. Steady work. Reliable. The kind of client you don't lose. He sounded uncomfortable. "Hey, Rosalie, everything okay on your end?" Why wouldn't it be? There was a pause. Then he said, "I got a call from a woman. Blocked number." I didn't speak. "She said your company's unstable, that there's been drug use on job sites, told me to be careful before renewing contracts. My face went cold. Not hot, cold, because that wasn't noise anymore. That was targeted. That's not true, I said evenly, and I believe I know exactly who made that call. Another pause. I figured it might be something like that, Eric said. Didn't sound right. I'll send you documentation by end of day. Okay. He hung up. I stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand. Then I moved, pulled everything together. The threat text, call logs, email screenshots, camera stills from the warehouse, timeline, names, dates. I built a file, not emotional, not defensive, just facts. By 4:30 p.m., Eric had it. At 5:12, he replied, I trust your work. Let me know if you need anything. That was the moment something shifted, because I realized this wasn't going to break me as easily as Brandon thought. That didn't mean it wouldn't cost me, but it wasn't going to end me. Saturday morning, I opened my front door, and there he was, sitting on the steps, wearing one of my old hoodies, crying. The kind of crying that looked almost staged, like he knew how it would appear from a distance. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, didn't invite him in. He looked up. I need you to stop making me the villain. I didn't raise my voice. Then stop acting like one. He flinched, just slightly. I didn't mean what I said, he continued quickly. I was hurt. I wanted you to listen. I didn't mean it literally. That word, literally. People love that word when they realize you heard them exactly as they spoke. I shook my head. You said it. I believed you. Rosalie? Leave. I'm not leaving until we talk. And then, from across the street, my neighbor, Mrs. Crowley, opened her front door. She looked between us, then said, loud enough to carry, Do I need to start recording? Brandon stood up, fast. Didn't say another word. Just walked to his car and left. That afternoon, I called an attorney. Retainer was $2,000. It stung, but not as much as losing everything I'd built would have. He didn't sound surprised. He told me to document everything. Stop responding. And be ready to send a cease and desist if Brandon contacted one more client. Monday morning, he contacted 3. So we sent it, formal, clear, no contact with me, my employees, my clients, or my vendors. Legal consequences if he continued. For about 12 hours, it was quiet. And then he got creative. The cease and desist didn't scare Brandon. It just changed how he played. He stopped using his own number, started using other people. That same afternoon, I got an email from his older sister, Melissa. Subject line, please be kind. She wrote that Brandon was spiraling, that I needed to show compassion, that breakups made people say things they didn't mean. I read it once, then archived it. No reply. An hour later, a message came through my business Instagram. His friend Kayla. Public humiliation changes people. I stared at that one longer, not because it meant anything, because it was phrased like a warning, like this was still somehow my fault. I didn't respond to that either. Then came LinkedIn. A message from someone who used to work with Brandon. She says you left her financially ruined. Hope that sits well with you. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. Because it showed exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just trying to reach me anymore. He was trying to rewrite the story. And then he changed tactics again. From reputation to time. Fake estimate requests started coming through my website. At first, they looked normal. Urgent electrical issues, flexible budgets, quick scheduling requests. We dispatched crews. They showed up to empty houses, or addresses that didn't exist, or homeowners who had no idea who we were. It didn't hit all at once, just enough to waste hours, to make the schedule sloppy, to create friction. Denise caught it before I did. She came into my office with 3 printed forms. Look at the wording, she said. I scanned them. Urgent need, flexible on budget, same punctuation, same spacing before question marks. I looked up. She raised an eyebrow. A Brandon text like that. I leaned back in my chair. Of course he did. We changed the system immediately. No dispatch without phone verification. No exceptions. The damage slowed. Then came the reviews. 1-star Google reviews from accounts with no history. Claims about unfinished jobs, unsafe wiring, missed permits. All fake. All written just convincingly enough to make someone hesitate. I reported every single one. Responded only when necessary. Short, professional, controlled. No emotion. Because emotion was exactly what he wanted. But the worst part wasn't the business. It was the feeling. Like I was being watched. Brandon knew my routines. He knew where I stopped for gas. Which diner I used when I had early jobs across town. What time I hit the supply house. And then he started appearing. Not directly. Not confrontational. Just there. One morning, I pulled into the supply yard. He was already parked. sitting in his car, didn't get out, just watched me pull in, then drove away. Another time I walked into my usual diner. He was at the counter, turned just enough to see me, then told the waitress, loud enough for half the room, "That woman still owes me money in closure." I didn't respond. I paid, tipped heavy, left. But something shifted in me after that, because coincidence doesn't repeat itself that cleanly. And then he crossed a line, a real one. Two of my employees came into the office looking confused. They'd both received emails from someone claiming to be a labor investigator, saying there were concerns about payroll practices, that they should be careful about their loyalty, that I was under review. Denise didn't even sit down when she walked into my office. She slapped the printed emails on my desk. "Your ex is stupid." I looked at them, then at her. That's one word for it. That was enough. I called my attorney. We sent a second letter. Stronger, this time specifically naming interference with business relationships, fraudulent impersonation, and he told me to file a police report. So I did. And somewhere in the middle of all that, something happened Brandon didn't expect. He called my mother. I still don't know what he thought that would do. Maybe he thought he could tell a story, make himself the victim, get her to pressure me. My mom doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't dramatize things, but she also doesn't tolerate nonsense. She called me afterward. "He said you destroyed his life." I let out a breath. "That's new. Tell me what actually happened," she said. So I did. Everything. The threat, the fake leads, the client calls, the emails. There was a pause. Then she said, "Oh, absolutely not." That was it. No lecture, no hesitation, just certainty. 2 days later, I got a message from another unknown number. "Your mother had no right to speak to me like that." I didn't even ask what she said, because I could imagine, and I trusted it was enough. That same week, I met Daniel. It wasn't dramatic. No big moment. Just a trivia night one of my commercial contacts invited me to. He was a physical therapist. Quiet, observant, the kind of man who listens before he speaks. We talked. Nothing forced. No performance. No need to impress. The next Sunday we got coffee, and I told him the truth. Not every detail, but enough. "My life's been messy lately." He nodded. "Messy past is fine," he said. "Ongoing chaos is different." That sentence stayed with me, because it was simple and honest. And it didn't ask me to be anything other than clear. But Brandon wasn't done. Not even close. He showed up at a restaurant in South End. Daniel and I were halfway through dinner when I saw him, standing near the host stand, pretending to wait for a table he didn't have. I felt it before I fully looked. That shift in the room. That awareness. He saw me, smiled, small, controlled, then walked past our table. "Cute," he said. "You replace fast." Daniel looked at me. I didn't look at him. I looked at Brandon. Believe. He didn't. Instead, he reached the edge of the table and knocked his wine glass. Just enough. Red wine spilled across Daniel's water, across the table. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to cause damage. The restaurant went quiet. Management stepped in. Someone called the police. Brandon left before they arrived, but the cameras didn't. We got the footage. I sent it to my attorney that night. For the first time since this started, he sounded almost relieved. "Good," he said. "Now it's clear." So we filed. Emergency protective order. And this time, it wasn't just about protecting my business. It was about protecting my life. The hearing was set 5 weeks later. 5 weeks of documenting everything. 5 weeks of no contact, at least from my side. 5 weeks of Brandon finding smaller, quieter ways to try and stay present, and failing more each time. By then, most of the noise around him had faded. Kayla stopped messaging. Melissa didn't follow up. Even the LinkedIn messages stopped. It's hard to keep supporting someone when the story keeps changing, when the facts don't line up, when the chaos starts touching other people. The fake reviews? 6 of them disappeared in one sweep after my attorney sent documentation. Google didn't confirm anything in writing, but they didn't need to. 2 clients gave written statements. Denise printed every email. The restaurant gave us footage. I had a binder thick enough to feel like weight in my hands, not emotional weight. Proof. Brandon showed up to court looking put together. Cream blouse, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. A notebook in his hand like he was there to take notes, not be judged. If you didn't know anything, you might have believed him. That was the part that almost impressed me. How easily he could switch roles. His attorney spoke first. Said Brandon had been emotionally distressed after an abrupt breakup. That he had only been trying to resolve personal and financial loose ends. That he was misguided. Not malicious. I sat there, hands folded, listening, because I already knew none of that was going to matter. Not after everything he'd done. My attorney didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He just started with the sentence, the one Brandon thought would scare me into staying. If you leave me, I'll ruin everything you built. He read it out loud, clear, steady. And for a second, the room went quiet. Then came everything else. The client statements, the fake emails, the impersonation, the call logs, the warehouse camera stills, the restaurant footage, the message. You have no idea what you just started. Page after page, fact after fact, no emotion, no interpretation, just truth. The judge didn't interrupt, didn't react much, just flipped through the pages, slowly, carefully. Then he looked over his glasses at Brandon. This is not heartbreak, he said. A pause. This is harassment with commercial impact. I felt something settle in my chest. Not relief. Not yet. Just recognition. Like someone had finally said the thing out loud. The judge continued. You attempted to interfere with her business, her clients, and her employees. You impersonated her. You created false reports. You escalated after being warned. He closed the folder. I don't need more time. The protective order was granted. 1 year. No contact. No approaching my home. No coming near the warehouse. No appearing at any job site once notified. No contact through friends. No contact through family. No contact with employees. No contact with clients. If he violated it, there would be consequences. Real ones. Brandon cried. Not the controlled version I'd seen before. Not the staged one on my front steps. Real tears. Shaky hands. Red eyes. I watched him for a moment and realized something. That was the first time he understood. This wasn't a relationship anymore. This wasn't something he could talk his way out of. This was a courtroom, and no one there cared about his tone, or his image, or his version of events. After the hearing, Denise texted me. Can I celebrate? I smiled. Yeah. That Friday, I took the whole crew out. Barbecue. Beer. Nothing fancy. I didn't give a speech. Didn't need to. I just thanked them for staying steady, for trusting me, for not letting my personal life crawl into the electrical panel of the business and start a fire. Business-wise, I took a hit. Lost one remodel contract, about $8,400. It stung, but it didn't break anything. The bigger accounts stayed. One new general contractor came in before winter. The forecasting job we'd bid on early fall came through. I gave Denise a raise, bought another used van, paid cash. Reliable, not flashy. That part mattered to me more now than it ever had. Personally, things got quiet. The good kind of quiet. Daniel kept seeing me, slowly, carefully. No pressure, no performance. One night, he told me, I like that you fix things before they become problems. I thought about that, because it wasn't just about work. It was about boundaries, about seeing something early, and not pretending it would get better on its own. My mom still asks about Brandon, calls him that man now, which is her version of permanent disapproval. Mrs. Crowley across the street waves every morning like we survived something together, which we did. As for Brandon, the last thing I heard, he moved. New apartment, new story, telling people I was controlling, abusive, threatened by ambitious men. That's fine. People who know me, and the ones who don't, they can believe whatever version he needs to tell. It doesn't change anything that actually matters. Because here's the part nobody tells you. Some people don't want love. They want leverage. They want access. Control. A front row seat to what you've built, so they can call it partnership without ever respecting the work behind it. And when you take that away, they don't grieve the relationship. They grieve the loss of influence. Brandon said he'd ruin everything I built. He didn't. He just revealed what I had built around myself. That needed to go. Bad boundaries. Too much patience. Too much explaining. That part? Yeah, that got ruined. Good, because what stayed was stronger. The company stayed. My name stayed. My people stayed. And the quiet that came after all of it felt better than any version of love that needs a threat to survive.